Hello and welcome to Exploring Jeeps. Today what we're going to talk about is the top 10 reasons you might hate your Jeep. A lot of people love them, but some people hate them. So here would be the top 10 reasons why I think people would hate their Jeep. Number 10, the driving feel. They can be bouncy, the steering is a little bit sloppy, it's not super tight. They're a little bit top heavy, so you have to be careful with how you're driving it. For me, the steering was a little bit loose in the beginning, and now I don't pay any attention to it. Probably took me 1,000 miles to get used to it, but after that it's been great. No issues with the driving feel for me. It was bouncy, it came from a kind of a more softer suspension vehicle, and but now it's I don't even notice it, so it's great. Number 9, the doors. The doors have cloth straps instead of the regular kind of hinged with the detents in there. Some people, it drives them nuts. It can be hard to get in and out of the Jeep, especially if you're holding something. The other thing with doors is they can be hard to get off. If let's say you want to take the top off, you want to take the doors off, it's a feature that's kind of advertised with Jeeps, and especially the rear doors, at least for me, very, very difficult to get off. It takes a lot of work. If you're a smaller person, or a woman or something, maybe you can't even get it off. I've seen a number of them driving around this summer with the rear doors still on, the front doors off, and I can guarantee you that's the reason why. They tried, they just couldn't get them off, which is too bad because they're the lighter ones. The front doors are kind of heavy, and the rear ones are much lighter and easier to take off once you get past the hinge. You take it off the first time, the second time and the third time it gets easier, but it's just one of those things. The rear doors are harder to take off. Number 8, cargo options. So there's enough space if you have a JKU, unlimited Wrangler, to put whatever you need to put in the back. So yeah, if you go on a long camping trip and you need to bring a lot of gear with you, or you want to sleep in the back of the unlimited, you're going to have a hard time bringing all your gear with you. So that leaves you to start putting stuff on the outside. The problem is you can't just put a regular roof rack onto the top of the Jeep. With the hard top, or especially if you have a soft top, you don't have that option. You can buy these big cage versions of roof racks, like the Gobi rack, which is beautiful. It looks great. There is a lot of drag, so you're going to hurt your gas mileage with that. But the cost is prohibitive. It's almost $2,000, to get the whole thing. So what we ended up doing for our Jeep to kind of overcome some of those limitations is we bought a trailer hitch. I put that on. There'll be another video coming soon. And then we used a rack that goes into the trailer hitch and sits behind the Jeep, which was great actually, because it didn't impact our gas mileage at all. Never noticed it was there. Doesn't make the car feel any different. No more extra wind noise. So it was kind of our best option. The only problem with it is everything got very dirty back there as we were on dirt roads for a lot of what we were doing, and it worked out good, but it was something we had to overcome, and we had to spend money on it. Total, we spent probably about $150 to get that extra storage space on the back of the Jeep, which wasn't too bad when you look at some of the other options. They can really start climbing there. Number 7 is noise. If you're if you're driving a Jeep, it's going to be noisy inside, especially if you have a soft top. It's going to be a little bit noisier than the hard tops.
At this point, I'm going 50 miles per hour. I am talking a little bit louder, and you can definitely hear the road noise from the tires.
The windshield is flat, a lot of wind noise, a lot of road noise from the tires, especially if you have aggressive treads. The stock Rubicon comes with mud terrains, and that is, they make a lot of noise. When you first get it, the treads are kind of rounded, so they're quieter, and then as you kind of wear those rounded parts off, you get kind of a sharper, more aggressive bite on the road, and you hear it more. And especially when you rotate your tires, you'll hear it. They actually get louder as you rotate the tires, and then they'll kind of settle down a little bit back to where they were. But the noise is definitely an issue, and some people just can't stand it. If you drive a lot of highway speeds where you're 70, 80 miles an hour, out west where you can legally do that, it's going to be loud, and it wears on you over a few hours. You really get kind of sound fatigue from it. Number 6, rear seat comfort. Okay, so not everybody who hates a Jeep is the one driving it. Sometimes it's the passengers in the Jeep, and the rear seat is kind of tight. It's a very upright position to sit in there, and you have the sound bar that's right in your head, so there's not a lot of space there. The doors are a little bit tighter, and then also one of the problems with the rear is that there's no air conditioning vents that route to the back. It'd be great if they had something come through the center console, and get the people in the back of the Unlimiteds. If it's super hot, you're going to have to do something about it. You either have to run your air conditioning at full volume, so the fan is going as high as possible, and maybe lower the temperature down even more. It might be cold for the people in front, if it's summer, but you need to get that cold air back to the back people, the people in the back. And the more volume you have, and shoot maybe the center jets, straight kind of through, leave the outside ones to the people in the front. And it's been okay. We also have the headliners, so those cut down on a lot of the heat coming in from the roof. So the headliners actually make a real positive difference there. But again, it's something you have to get and put in, or you can buy it from the factory, but I wouldn't recommend it because it's a very expensive option. Well, not expensive, but it's like $250 more for it if you buy it at the factory versus just buying it from the dealer and installing it yourself. Number 5, gas mileage. You should know this going in. Jeeps don't get great gas mileage. No SUVs get great gas mileage. They have more aggressive treads. 4-wheel drive systems are heavy. We average about 15 around town, 16 maybe, to 19 on the highway, and that's the best we can do. Even if you baby it, those are the kind of the numbers that we're seeing. Again, with the Rubicon, with the mud terrain tires on it, you could go to a slightly less aggressive tread, but then you're kind of looking at degraded performance off road and stuff like that. So I don't drive a lot. I work from home, so it's one of those things where it works out just fine for me. Number 4. Okay, so the wrong driving use case, right? So you may have bought a Jeep thinking that it's going to be this fun Jeep, and you're going to take it off road and it's going to be great, and you'll take the top off, and on the weekends you love it. But during the week it's your daily driver, and you have a 50-mile commute of stop and go traffic. it's not the most comfortable or the most efficient car for that use case, and it just may not work, and you just may hate it because it's costing you money, or you don't. Maybe you got a manual, and it's just in the stop and go traffic, it's just a pain to drive, and you don't like it. So obviously you made the wrong choice, and maybe you can get a second daily driver or something and keep your Jeep for the weekends, and maybe you'd love it a lot more. So number 3, getting in. So for some people this is a big issue. People who are not as tall, or people who are heavy like myself. Now mine, I have just stock. I don't have a lift kit on it. I don't have larger tires. I just have the 32 mud terrains that come standard with it. I don't really have any trouble getting into the Jeep. You kind of figure out how to do it. My wife, who's a little bit shorter than I am, has a little bit of trouble getting into the Jeep. We ended up getting rock rails from the Hard Rock. From the Hard Rock that we put on our Jeep, and she's able to use that as a step. She just needs a little bit every once in a while, but she doesn't have too much trouble getting into the Jeep the way it is. Now, I've had her try it kind of lifted a few inches, so I may put a 2.5-inch lift and 35-inch tires on it or something. I think she'd still be okay with that. But that's about as high as I can go. I can't put 37s in a 4-inch or a 6-inch lift or something like that. She just would not be able to get into the Jeep. But that can be a big deal. So it may not be for the driver, but again, for your passengers, they may just hate it, and they may resent any money that's spent on it. It may just become this point of contention with people because they want the big Jeep and they want everything else, and it just doesn't work for the rest of the family. So keep that in mind. If that's your plans, maybe you need to get an older Jeep that can be a second car, or the second daily driver kind of thing, versus this is the family car and I'm going to turn it into a off-road monster. So number 2, so this is a strange one, and I don't mean to imply anything with this, but number 2 is you can't afford it. So one of the reasons that some people hate their Jeep is they can't afford it. As a vehicle, it's expensive. We were looking at costing out just a Sport or a Sport S model for a second car. So we were looking at getting a second Jeep, and thinking that we could come in much lower than what we paid for the Rubicon. And the reality was, as you start tacking in items like the Uconnect and some of the other items that, like automatic transmission, it starts growing, and it's almost one of those things that most people are going to end up paying around 30 grand at least, if not more towards 35 for even the lower model Jeeps that may not have everything in them that a Rubicon or a Hard Rock or an Altitude or something like that those do. So you may not be happy with how much you spend. And then also, we bought our Rubicon, and there were, it's one of the higher end models, and there were a lot of things that we still needed to do to it. I had to put the headliners in it. I put the trailer hitch. I put the hood latches. And there were a lot of the rock rails that was a step for my wife. So there were a lot of things that we had to add to the Jeep, and we've loved every step of it, and it's given us the opportunity to do a lot of different things. So it's been great, and we've loved it. Now, when I was a kid, I was 20-something years old. I wanted to buy a Jeep, but I wasn't able to. I couldn't afford it, and luckily I made the decision to buy my wife a wedding ring. And that was one of the best decisions that I made. Now, whether or not I could afford my wife at the time is one thing, but that's another story. But yeah, you have to get a Jeep when you can afford it, or buy an older, second-hand Jeep, a used Jeep, if that's what you want to do. If you really want a Jeep, buy one that you can afford. with the knowledge that you're going to have to do some stuff to it if you want to take it off-road and you want to make it your own. It's just the way it is. And you know, don't hate it because it's expensive or because you have to spend money on it. It's just the way it is. And then number one, design limitations. Okay, so this one, now you don't have to keep going. At this point you can just turn the video off, and you know, you can make a choice. You can take the blue pill and just turn it off now, or you can take the red pill. And you know, there's going to be some things that I talk about here that you may not want to know. Sometimes as you hear about things, you start to look for them, and then they might start to bother you. So if you're happy with what you have and you don't want to keep going, just stop the video now. Otherwise, I'm going to go through some of the design limitations. Some of these I've touched on before, but like the hood latches, my hood bounced all the time. So if you were on the highway, you go by a semi or something like that, the hood would start bouncing to the point where I was afraid that it was going to come off and open on us while we were on the highway. Whether or not that could have happened or whether it could have been damaged, you know, I don't know. I had to take care of it, so I ended up spending $100 on hood latches to fix that. There's no lock on the hood. Okay, so if you live in a bad neighborhood, or you just go through bad neighborhoods, or something, and you want to leave your Jeep, the hood's open, so that people can just pop those rubber hood latches, and they're into your engine compartment without any issues. Now, you know, could they put a crowbar on a regular one that's locked? Yeah, they could do that too, but just something to know. So one of the things too that I've found is that as you're driving off-road, the Jeep is terrible about like rocks kicking up on the side of the Jeep and scratching like the doors, the door hinges. When we went on our trip to Alaska, we ended up buying mud flaps, and I installed mud flaps just so that that wouldn't happen, because it just was nonstop, you know, gravel kicking up. Also, you know, on the front bumper, everything comes around your tire when it's raining and gets put on the front bumper, so it's very difficult to keep a stock Jeep clean. It's very difficult to keep rocks and things from hitting the side of your Jeep. You know, for me, that's a design limitation. I'm not sure why they built it the way they did. Brakes, you hear people complain about brakes when you're going to put larger tires on. You can go with these big brake kits. So one of the design limitations is if you're planning on, you know, going to a lift and putting larger tires on, there's a lot of different things that you're going to have to upgrade to make that happen. Maybe bigger axles, different gearing on there. You definitely have to check the gearing, you know, that you buy to make sure that you can support larger tires, because you know, most people want like larger 35-inch tires and you know, bead locks or something like that, and it's questionable whether or not the stock Jeep is going to be able to support that. So okay, so another design limitation, like the oil pan underneath is not protected by anything. So you know, if you put it on a rock, you know, I just think that the design limitation is there needs to be more skid plates. And yeah, you can buy aftermarket skid plates for everything, but you know, why doesn't something like the oil pan have a skid plate on it to protect it? The front differential, you know, I think there's some flaws in how they've designed some of this stuff. So if you're going to buy a Sahara Hard Rock or a Rubicon, they come with a 120 volt plug. It's almost worthless. I can't plug my laptops into it. It trips the circuit breaker. So you know, design limitation, very weak 120 volt power outlet that comes with the higher end versions. I'm not sure why they did that. The only thing that we are able to use it for is to plug our phones in, and there's USB ports, USB plugs around, so we don't even need it. There's a cigarette lighter. We have we can plug our phone in with a cigarette lighter. So that 120 volt thing is just a waste of money and a gimmick. I thought it was going to be cool. I could plug my laptop in, I could do work while my wife's driving or something like that. But the reality is no. I think that was a bad decision on Jeep's part to make it so weak. Rust. So underneath the Jeep, there's a lot of steel that just rusts very easily. It looks to be surface rust and not structural. So it's kind of okay, and you know, I don't know the mechanics behind it or the physics, or maybe more importantly the chemistry behind it, because you know, my Volvo that I have has almost no rust underneath. I don't know if they use different alloys like a stainless or something like that that keeps it from rusting, but definitely you know, this Jeep is one of the worst ones as far as rust goes. And I'm use fluid film and other things like that to keep the rust at bay, because I don't like to look at it. And with the Jeep, it's higher up and you can look at it and see, my undercarriage is brown. I have a black car. Why is that? So that is one of the things that I hate. The traction control. So this is a strange one. If you want to do donuts in the snow or in the mud or fishtail and just kind of play with your Jeep, the traction control limits you from doing that. I don't know a way of turning it off. There's some potential sequences or whatever, you do this and you do that and you can turn it off. I don't think that's the case on my Rubicon with the Enhanced Vehicle Information Center or whatever, the EVIC, which I love, but I think everything is controlled and locked down so that I can't turn that off. I'd like to do donuts in a safe area. I like to have the traction control on when I'm driving on the road, but sometimes you want to play and you're not allowed to do that with this, with the newer JKs. So that's something I don't like. The speakers, the stock speakers are pretty weak. A lot of people change them out. I have a video on it. If you go over and take a look at that, you can see, for 75 bucks, it was a pretty big improvement. Why Jeep doesn't do that standard, because it would probably only cost them $30 per Jeep. I'd rather pay $30 up front and get something that doesn't frustrate me a little bit. Headliners, I mentioned those before, makes a big difference for heating, cooling, a little bit for sound, helps with the sound, kind of takes away a little bit of the echo in people's voices. So that's something. And then the front windshield, this is the last one, the last design limitation. It's so flat, it's terrible with gas mileage, and even worse than that, rocks that get kicked up are gonna crack your windshield. So I have 2 cracks in the windshield already, and I know that I will have, tens more throughout the life of the Jeep. If a rock is gonna hit it, it's gonna crack it because it's so flat it can't glance off it. I've had other cars where, I've had big rocks hit real hard, but they hit, and they bounce off. Every time I've had a large rock hit the Jeep, it's cracked my windshield, and that can be very frustrating. The windshields aren't terribly expensive, but man, if you lived on gravel roads where you're constantly going by trucks, your windshield is going to be just smashed up constantly, and at some point you're just going to start hating the Jeep and say, why did they do this? And it's too bad. So a lot of design limitations, I think. If you've stuck around this long, I appreciate it, and I just want to say that with all these things that people can hate, it really only takes one thing to love it, and that's just how much fun the Jeep is. And you can look at many other cars and say, wow, that's a really nice car. You can look at like a Ford Explorer, whatever kind of car you like. I'm just using that as an example, and you look at them and you say, wow, that's really nice. It looks great. I love how they've detailed this part. It's very comfortable to drive, but it's not I don't look at any other car like that and think it's fun. Maybe like a Miata or some little convertible that's just as impractical as a Jeep is. I don't think you can make a practical, fun car. I don't think the two, you know, can coexist really. And the Jeep for me is one that's just so much fun that I've, you know, been able to just set aside all the limitations, and they don't bother me because of the capabilities of the Jeep. I really value the strength and the ability to go through anything traction-wise, deep water. I've had great reliability out of it so far, knock on wood. And I just love it. So if you're one of those people that hate your Jeep, I'm sorry for that. You know, maybe it wasn't the right time for you to have a Jeep, or maybe it just wasn't meant to be, and that's too bad. But for most people, I think you will find that it's a lot of fun, and if you can fit the Jeep into your life, you know, into your use case for a vehicle, I think you'll probably really enjoy it. So, thanks for watching.